Hey everybody, today I want to talk about basically what's my personal philosophy. I'm calling it Crowdism for the sake of this post, but that's not meant to be some kind of dogma or something written in stone. It's just, I think, a good way for describing my beliefs. I think it's a good umbrella to put over all of the heuristics and beliefs that I've acquired over the years, which make up my personal philosophy. I like to think that these ideas come from rationality and logic and watching what works and then assessing their predictive powers, but I'll admit that that could theoretically just be rationalizations. But I still want to share with you my philosophy, and one thing I realized is that basically Crowdism, or my personal philosophy, has a large amount of overlap with first principles logic, which I've discussed in some of my videos, and in fact these right here are the first principles of my philosophy. So let's get started. The core first principle is that humans are information processing nodes that acquire information by interacting with their local environment. A really great book to read in order to, I think it's just a great book to read generally, but it's especially enlightening with respect to my worldview. When I first heard about the book, I was like, damn it, this guy wrote my book before I could write it. But in fact, I really loved the book, and instead of replacing the book I would write, it actually just gave me more evidence and more science to work from to back up my beliefs. And that book was written by Cesar Hidalgo. I believe he was head of the MIT, or he still is, head of the MIT research lab, something at MIT. He's a high-level academic. Cesar Hidalgo is his name, and he wrote the book Why Information Grows. And in that book, there's a quote that I think helps illustrate what I'm talking about here, and that is that humans and some machines have the ability to interpret messages and infuse them with meaning. But what travels through the wires or electromagnetic waves is not that meaning. It is simpler. It is just information. So while this might sound overly simplistic, right, because it ignores that human beings recognize meaning, what Hidalgo points out is that the meaning is actually something that we project onto information. It shouldn't be confused with the information itself. Warren Weaver, one of the founders of information theory, along with Shannon, he said that information must not be confused with meaning. So while you might disagree with these fundamental assumptions, these are two very bright guys who are not disagreeing with a central premise of mine. But this all begs the question, what is information? And at least according to Hidalgo, and this is certainly conforms to everything else I've learned over the years, is that information is really just order. As he says in his book, information is not a thing. Rather, it is the arrangement of physical things. It is physical order. The next first principle, foundational principle of mine, is that since humans are information processing nodes, they can increase the total information of the system by using technology, which includes language, smoke signals, computers, etc., to transmit the local information they acquire to other individuals in exchange for non-local information, i.e., information acquired in non-local environments. And that's what I have depicted up here, right? Each one of these circles is a human being. The blue area is their local environment, which they interact with, and in so doing, acquire information. And then they use communication technologies, which include language, language being arguably the original technology, to transmit the information on their local environment to people outside of their local environment in exchange for information from those other people, from those other information processing nodes. Now, the next thing I want to talk about may seem disconnected from what I've been discussing up until now, but bear with me, I think it comes together. And that's this Friedrich Hayek quote, Friedrich Hayek being one of the Austrian economists. And he said, "In a system in which the knowledge of the relevant facts is dispersed among many people, prices can act to coordinate the separate actions of different people." In other words, money is just one technology or tool that is used to transmit information between human processing nodes. In which case, the better designed the money, the more easily information will flow and grow within a population, resulting in the emergent phenomenon we call wealth. So in short, by using technology to share information between minds, humans can form crowds which contain far more information than any individual within them and behave accordingly. The crowd behaves as if it contains far more information than any of the individuals within it, because it does. Now, it's important to point out that humans are themselves a crowd of information processing nodes, just one example of which are the neurons in our brains. And those nodes themselves are crowds of information like atoms, which we must remember also qualify as ordered matter. So what can we conclude from this? If we assume that steam and the steam-backed monetary system is a superior monetary technology, which I believe is the case, then it becomes very reasonable to ask how this will affect how information flows and grows within the population that uses steam, and the effect this will have on the wealth generated by that population. That's it. This is essentially the basis of my worldview, of my philosophy. I'm not saying it's perfectly articulated. Let's call this just the beginning. That's kind of one of the interesting things about being human, is that you can have beliefs and not really understand why you have those beliefs. So I'm not trying to be dogmatic here. I'm not saying this is right. I'm not saying that this philosophy is somehow mutually exclusive with any other one. For example, if you wanted to say democracy or capitalism or socialism, I'm not saying that this is right and those are wrong. In fact, what I would be more tempted to argue is that those philosophies were trying to get at these fundamental truths, but they were doing it at a time where we literally just didn't know as much about the universe. Most of these theories were developed before atoms were even known. Forget, all the other scientific information that came after that. So, I interpret capitalism and socialism and whatever other political philosophy, whether it's anarcho-capitalism, anarcho-syndicalism, libertarian socialism, I ask myself whether those disagree or agree with these fundamental principles, and whether the disagreement sheds any light on this and vice versa, and whether the agreement sheds any light on that or this and vice versa. So I hope you guys found this interesting. You're not supposed to. What are you doing? What? Bye.